Hi, I'm Chris Barano, founder of Your Purpose is Your Power. What you're about to hear is the first part of a conversation I had with Kambiz Naficy earlier this year. Kambiz has helped thousands of people worldwide heal from traumas, addictions, and self-limiting beliefs. Kambiz uses a unique combination of Kriya yoga and reprogramming the subconscious. While you won't see me in the interview, I wanted to personally introduce this as what Kambiz shares is a powerful catalyst for personal transformation in any area of life. Can you take us back to your childhood in Iran? What was home like?
So I was born in Tehran, Iran, in the early 50s. The family was a very old family, kind of an aristocratic family. I was surrounded by government ministers and ambassadors and people in the royal court. So one of my issues was I couldn't find any role models, people who were artistically, spiritually inclined. And during my teenagehood, that caused some problems because I looked around, everybody was an ambassador or a senator or something, and I couldn't find somebody who was like me. So I couldn't digest the fact that I was an oddball within that family. And that caused me to mistrust my own nature. And the fact that I mistrusted my own nature and got too far away from my own heart, that actually set me up to become a healer later on because I had to heal my own self-doubt about who I was and my own spiritual artistic nature. The society was very Islamic, so like women were second-class citizens. A lot of times they had to cover themselves even during the Shah's time. Our family was not religious, but we were surrounded by a religious society. So you could tell that women always had to be careful not to expose their skin or their hair. You could see that in the environment. It's plain to see.
Was there any element of spirituality among your relatives, even your friends, families, that kind of thing? When were you first introduced to spirituality and then alternative spirituality?
Right. Spirituality is very much part of Persian culture because Iran and Persia, they're known for their poets, their poetry, poets like Rumi, Hafiz. So Persian poetry is very spiritual poetry. There's a lot of verses pointing towards the God force and Allah, God. And so that's nothing foreign to the Persian culture. You grow up with it. Now, in terms of a metaphysical, yogic type of God, I was not exposed to any of that until my early 30s when I started to seek spirituality through yoga metaphysics, the concept of God as an energy field that is made of consciousness instead of an angry, white-bearded man hovering above the clouds. That I started to get exposure towards in my early 30s.
So you were in New York at that time?
Yes, yes. And I quit my Wall Street job. I was very alienated from myself because, because I doubted my own spiritual artistic nature. I headed towards the Ivy League schools, finished Columbia University, entered Wall Street. And one day I woke up in my Italian suit and I was just very alienated from my own artistic spiritual nature. So I just divorced my life.
Was there a moment that you can remember that where you had to decide, I'm taking a different route in life?
I would call it the dark night of the soul. It was one particular day in the bank. I had just had it. I was miserable in a 9-to-5 job. I didn't really identify with the bankers around me. I had a different nature. So one day, without a job, I just went into the vice president's office, handed my resignation in. This was in Manhattan. I really thought I'd be dead the following day because it was an expensive lifestyle that I was leading. And I quit without a job. It was the dark night of the soul because I knew I had to end that life. But the next Kambiz, the next person to be, was nowhere to be seen. So what happens is you resign, without knowing who you're going to be afterwards or what your job is going to be. My whole education was in business. I had no education in spirituality. So that was probably the darkest afternoon of my life, was walking into that VP's office and resigning without a job.
So what happened? What was the next step?
The next day I woke up, expensive apartment. I knew I had to give up the apartment very quickly. I found a friend who lent me an apartment for a month. And then I heard about Maharishi International University in Fairfield, Iowa. And there they taught spirituality. In Fairfield, they taught the Vedic style of Indian style of spirituality. And you could go there and volunteer for a part-time job and learn Maharishi's spiritual teachings. You could meditate 7 hours a day in their dome. And so I just gave up the banking job, moved out to Fairfield, Iowa. It was very different from Manhattan. And I got $14 a month for volunteering, sweeping floors, helping out with office chores. And there I had a chance to meditate hours and hours per day and study Maharishi's videos about the soul, about higher consciousness, about how to quiet the mind. And that lasted for a whole 2 years.
Is that where you were first exposed to Kriya Yoga?
So in Southeast Iowa at Maharishi University, we were only taught TM because Maharishi Mahesh Yogi brought transcendental meditation to the US. So his clan were practicing a mantra-based meditation called transcendental meditation. In mantra meditation, you repeat a mantra over and over again, and your mind becomes bedazzled by the sound and the frequency of that mantra. Something like Om, 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 or Shring, Shring, Shring. And that's effective because the mantra starts to take the place of any potential negative thinking. If you think of your mind as a parking space, or lots of parking spaces, what happens is repetition of the mantras start to take up the parking spaces that used to be taken up by negative thoughts. So in that sense, mantra meditation is very effective. Also, the mantra has a vibration like Om. That vibration starts to vibrate within your body and your energy centers. And that vibration takes you in deeper, a lot more quickly. Later on, after Fairfield, Iowa, I started visiting India intermittently for about a 15-year period. During one of those trips, I was reading a book by Paramahansa Yogananda called Autobiography of a Yogi. Somebody in a tea house in India said, if you're reading this book here, you should follow me to the next block and take a left. So he took me to the hut where Paramahansa Yogananda's own guru had lived. And so he said, go and enter that place. That is a place of Kriya Yoga. And Kriya Yoga is a breathing science going back to 1800 years ago. The founder was Kriya Babaji Nagaraj. And Kriya Yoga, instead of focusing on a mantra, it focuses on breath coming in and bringing in a life force called prana. Prana is something more subtle, more invisible than oxygen, and it comes in with every inhalation. So in Kriya Yoga, you manage the intake and the distribution of an invisible life force called prana. The Japanese call it ki, the Chinese call it chi. And it's not oxygen that's keeping you alive, it's prana, the life force, that's keeping you alive. So when you die, prana leaves your body. Oxygen doesn't.
Tell us a little bit about the spiritual intensive that's ongoing right now and the potential plans for future cohorts.
Good. You know, I've been healing people for about 40 years in 12 countries, and it's always been through the format of a weekend workshop or a 5-day meditation workshop or a 2-month coming full circle self-transformation course that aims at getting rid of negativity lodged in the subconscious mind. And then I realized that when I go to students and give them a boost, a spiritual boost or a self-transformation boost through these workshops, they feel very high, they feel very clear-minded, and then the busy, hectic life catches up with them. And they start to fall away from their practice. So I realized that continuity over a longer period of time is very, very helpful. So I thought to myself, well, why not present a 10-month period, meet your students once a week, give them meditation, give them the wisdom of the ages from the Indian spiritual books of the Vedas, also talk about the subconscious mind and how to cleanse the subconscious of baggage. So mix in psychology with spirituality, but do it for 10 continuous months, once a week. Throw in Kriya Yoga meditation and see what happens to people. And I find that the students really, really thrive because the subconscious mind of the student knows that they are now on a spiritual boot camp. When you know that you're on a program with me, your soul is alerted. Your soul knows, kind of like if you put a railway car on rails, it's gonna turn and it's gonna go wherever the rail goes. And a spiritual intensive is like that railway rail, and it keeps your life on those rails. You know that you're going to meet me once a week. You know you're going to have the voice of a 10,000-year-old grandfather in your ear because the ancient books of the Vedas they present you with the wisdom of a 10,000-year-old grandfather. And then, of course, I talk to people about their daily lives. I talk about the subconscious mind, psychology, and then we end with the Kriya Yoga meditation, which is very soothing and peaceful.
When people join, there's a weekly live Zoom call. What else is involved? Do they get downloads, PDFs, recordings? What else?
Yes, all of that, yeah. Because it's on Zoom, then they get the video, audio recordings of each session. Keep in mind, it's going to be 40 sessions, so it's a great thing to have for your archives. You also get to enjoy anywhere from 20 to 100 people you enjoy their company, their companionship for 10 months. So these people get very close to each other. And they get Google Slides and notes. On the Google Slides, there's already an audio recording of me explaining the lesson. So the Google slide you get has audio embedded in it. So we've got the slides, we've got the audio recordings, the video recordings. We've got 20 to 100 people in the class, and we've got weekly meditations and continuity.
And are there any exercises that the students can use?
Every time.
Yeah.
So in one particular session, I'll say, let's take good care of the day.
Yeah.
Let's be mindful. And somebody will ask, well, how can you help me stay mindful during a hectic day? And I say, here's a technique. Every time you touch your fingertips, that's a physical reminder to be here now, to become aware. And then every time you do this, start to follow your breath. If you follow your breath, you'll land in the present moment. You'll be more mindful. So moment by moment, I'm throwing in techniques. When we finish a session, I send you links for downloading the recordings. In that same email with the download links, you always get 4 or 5 pointers from me in terms of what you need to implement into your life that particular week. So I'll say things like, don't forget breath awareness, or make a vow to take beautiful care of your day. That'll be in the ending of the email where they get the download links.
Excellent. I know that over the years you have had events, retreats, and places all over the world, Sri Lanka, Switzerland, France recently. What goes on at those retreats?
5 days, people start their sessions at 9 a.m. There's an hour of a spiritual talk or a psychological talk. I teach along two highways. One highway is that I help awaken a spiritual energy in your body called Kundalini, and I awaken that spiritual energy in your body by teaching you the ancient wisdom of the Indian scriptures. And I also give you energy with my fingertips. And I also take you into Kriya Yoga breathing meditation. So, breathing meditation, the ancient scriptures, plus the talks that I have with you in person, they enliven a spiritual electricity that's otherwise dormant in your body. The second road that I take you along in my talks is an understanding of the subconscious mind, how you come up with baggage, how you get wounded growing up, and how to heal. Those are the two roads. So in a 5-day workshop, we begin with an hour talk, and then we go into the practice room. We do 45 minutes of yoga postures and movements, and then you lay down in deep, deep relaxation. I call it the 31-point relaxation. You're giving yourself a breath massage in 31 energy points in your body. And then you get up and you do the sitting Kriya Yoga breathing meditation. That whole routine is repeated 3 times a day. So from 9 until 10:30 p.m. with lots of breaks, you do 3 rounds of spiritual practice for 5 days.
I know that you've held them in, what's the name of the place in France?
So Saint-Georges, that's in Normandy, France, an hour and 15 minutes from Paris, France.
The photos that I've seen, it looks heavenly. Green, big old trees, beautiful grounds, beautiful venue. Yeah, I hope to go one day. Are there any plans currently for another one? I noticed that there
Yes.
wasn't. When is the next one? Is that the fall?
The next one is fall, second week of October, probably October 16th through the 21st. And the village of Saint-Georges is, again, an hour and 15 minutes from Paris. We can help you with transportation. Everything's taken care of. You just need to show up.
What is the maximum enrollment?
We can take up to 35 people.
Very good. You've taught that breath is the foundation of everything, from physical health to spiritual awakening. Can you explain this connection?
Well, first of all, let's be very practical. You are born, you come into this world with your first inhalation, and you exit your body with the last exhalation. So your oldest companion is the breath. Why am I saying this? Because breath is very accessible. You are with it from the first moment until the last moment. You can always access the breath. Now, what's so important about the breath? Kriya Yoga meditation employs the breath as the vehicle, as the platform that you use for meditation. So other forms of meditation use a mantra. Kriya Yoga says, listen, you were born with the breath. It's always with you. Why don't we use it as the vehicle, as the platform for meditation? So when you pay willing attention to the breath, everything in your life starts to change. When you intentionally pay attention to breath comes in, breath goes out, all of your movements become more graceful. Your mind really, really relaxes because attention to the breath takes the place of fear and anxiety. And then there's a very close correlation between your mind and nervous system and the breath. Like when you're angry, you're breathing very rapidly. You're breathing in an irregular fashion. When you're relaxed, you take deep breaths, slow breaths, rhythmic breaths. So there's a connection between breathing and your nervous system. What Kriya Yoga does, Kriya Yoga says, okay, why don't we master the breath so that we can master the nervous system by mastering the breath? So Kriya Yoga teaches you to breathe deeper into your stomach instead of the chest. It teaches you to breathe in a rhythmic fashion, in a quiet fashion.
The way that I see this is that some of us, our mind controls our breath. The people that might be a little more mindful use their breath to control the mind.
Exactly.
Is that a fair statement?
Yes. And that whole science is called pranayama. Pranayama is one of the 8 daily practices within the science of yoga. Pranayama says if you master the breath, you're going to master the mind. If you master the mind, you can master your entire life.
What is Kundalini and how does it relate to our transformation?
Mm-hmm. Kundalini is a dormant spiritual energy. It lies dormant in the bodies of most human beings until awakened by a spiritual teacher who already has Kundalini active and awakened in his or her body. The process of the teacher awakening this in you, that process in Sanskrit is called Shaktipat. It's the equivalent of jump-starting a dead battery with a good battery using cables. Except here we don't use cables. The teacher uses a glance or a whisper of a mantra in your ear or just a touch of their fingertip on one of your energy centers. Once Kundalini is awakened in your body, she starts up from her resting station, which is an inch above your tailbone. She starts going up your spine and starts to cleanse energy centers that are located along the length of your spine. Like one of them is at the navel area, another is in the heart centers, another at the pit of the throat. There's another one between the eyebrows. These get cleansed. Once they get cleansed, you literally feel like you used to be asleep and now you're awake. Meaning you become very aware of one single God force running through every living being. You start to become very compassionate. You live more in the present moment. You realize that plants, animals, all other humans are part of one family. You start to feel more love instead of fear. Those are the 2 basic emotions. So you start to feel more love instead of fear. Also, you start to see a lot more serendipity. You start to manifest your deepest desires in the physical realm. Because once Kundalini is awakened, the forces of nature know that you are now in line and vibrating at the same frequency as natural forces. That's how you're able to manifest your desires.
So Kundalini speaks on a frequency to things we can't see.
As long as Kundalini is dormant, you're not seeing a lot of things. Think about a horse whisperer. A horse whisperer has such a quiet mind, they can gauge what the needs of the horse are. Okay? But if the mind is too busy, you're talking at the horse instead of talking with the horse. Same thing with Kundalini. Once Kundalini awakens, your mind becomes a lot quieter. So if you're walking in the forest, you're just paying more attention to the environment. So then you can hear the bird. You can make contact with the deer and nature.
You often talk about the witness. And there's a talk that I recall a few years ago that was entitled, The Witness is Your Best Friend. Who is the witness?
Quite simply said, your mind, as you sit before me, your mind has 2 layers. One layer of your mind is represented by this box. This box has beliefs written on its 4 walls. This mind is called the subconscious mind. This mind started getting conditioned by your parents, by your church, by your society from the time you were born up until you were 7. All of your core beliefs about sexuality, whether you're intelligent or funny, whether you're good at sports, all of that is set up here. Your other mind is a mind that notices the conditioned mind. So if you ever notice that you're hungry, if you notice that you're impatient today, The one who's noticing is called mindfulness. Every human being has that second, more enlightened layer of the mind that is the quiet observer of what's going on in this moment. Everybody has that.
What can one do to get in touch with that witness?
Simply intend to notice. So then how do you intend? I give people a simple exercise. I say every time you touch your fingertips, say to yourself, I'm now going to be mindful. Just do this at the bus stop. The moment you do that, you intend to be more mindful. When you create the intention, then I would say, for a moment, follow 2 inhalations, 2 exhalations. As you follow the breath, you immediately land in the present moment with mindfulness. Placing attention on the breath makes you instantly mindful of what the needs of this moment are.
I'm interested in hearing some stories or what it was like to come in contact with some of the masters of yoga in India. Can you share a little bit about that?
Sure. You know, something about my instinct, I went straight for the most sincere, the most powerful yogis and teachers of India. I didn't spend much time in the New Age jungle, so to speak. And when I went to India, I actually, and coincidentally, found the hut of the teacher, the guru of Yogananda. And that guru's name was Sri Yukteswar. He had already passed away. But I realized that one of the people who remained in their body, remained alive after Paramahansa Yogananda, was Swami Hariharananda. And I met Hariharananda in Florida when he was 92 years old. And he initiated me in Kriya Yoga. So Hariharananda was like the little brother to Yogananda, and Hariharananda remained in India while Yogananda came to the US to teach. So I met Hariharananda when he was 92 in Homestead, Florida. I met Satya Sai Baba several times. Satya Sai Baba mostly lived in the village of Buddhaparthi, and he had millions and millions of followers. And he met me 2 or 3 times. One time I asked him for him to give me some signs of enlightenment. One of the things he said, an enlightened person knows what to say, whom to say it to, and when to say it. He said one of the toughest things is to control the tongue. And an enlightened person is so present that they really know when to speak, what to speak, and who to say it to. As a spiritual teacher, I know if I give advice at the wrong time and the person is resistant, then they just won't accept the teaching.
You once said that all pain arises from resisting life. Can you break that down for us?
Sure. Resistance towards the moment comes from the fact that you have your own programmed, conditioned mind with your old beliefs, your old habits. So you come into this moment with your own programming, and if the moment doesn't present you with circumstances that suit your ego, you're going to resist. So, somebody's programmed to live in just a white neighborhood. Then if some immigrants move in, that goes against their past conditioning and they become resistant. Or somebody needs to have at least $300,000 in their savings account. And when it drops down to 200, they start to resist that moment. And this is awful. Why? Because every time we resist, we're not in the moment. We're not responding to the moment. If you're not responding to this moment, then you're already in big trouble. Why? Because life is happening in this moment. If you're a stockbroker, you can't be thinking about yesterday. You have to be here responding to the market now. If you're a mom, you have to respond to your child now, not with memories of your firstborn. Doesn't work that way.
What's the connection between unresolved trauma and addiction?
Any kind of unresolved trauma creates inner turmoil, like an inner civil war. Whenever something happens that's too hard for you to digest, emotionally, psychologically, instead of letting that incident pass, you push it down into a vault called your subconscious mind. So let's say you watch a taxi cab hit your brother's bicycle. That moment is so painful, you push the moment into your subconscious mind where it gets recorded and it stays there forever until triggered by another incident today. So what happens is most people push traumatic incidences into their subconscious where that incidence and the emotions get triggered over and over again. So if you're breaking up with your girlfriend and right then they're playing a piece of music, 20 years later, if they play that piece of music, you come right back to the emotions during the time of the breakup. This is what happens to people. So free people learn how to get into the subconscious and how to release pent-up dramas and traumas. And I can help them with a program called Coming Full Circle. That 2-month program is designed to get into the subconscious and to get out the old traumas.
Why do traditional addiction treatments fail to address root causes?
Because we have a lot of clinics in California that treat addiction. And what they do is they bring somebody into a beautiful environment, they give them some medicine, and they get them physically away from the drug, thinking that beautiful environment, some relaxation, some talk with a psychotherapist is going to resolve the problem. But I believe that addiction arises when you wander too far from your own nature, from the song of your own heart. As a human being, you have a center of existence. Your center is your home. When you grow up or when you face traumatic situations, you start to wander away from your own heart, from your own nature. That creates such a painful vacuum that you need to fill up that hole with a substance that's mood altering. So I believe the deepest root of any addiction is being too far away from the song of your own heart, from the center of your own existence, from your own natural essence. That's the root of an addiction. So to get rid of an addiction, you need to get people back to their own natural element.
Going all the way back to your studies and your experience in dealing with people, what advice do you have to help people relieve themselves of anxiety and trust? And trust in their life and in their future.
Right. You know, no doubt we're living in a world with a very high level of fear. Fear is replacing love. I say when it comes down to the wire, in the worst of situations, the only thing you've got left is you and the center of your own existence. So if we come back to the science of yoga or to all spiritual traditions, their main message is the center of your being, your heartbeat, your essence. That's the safest place to be. So in order to quell fear, you need techniques that bring your attention back home instead of you being outwardly focused. So the more news you watch, the more you're reliant on external leadership, the more fearful you're going to be. You need ways of coming back home to the center of your being, following your breath, being aware of your own heartbeat, doing your meditation, trusting your own intuition. What powerful spiritual practices do, they bring your attention back to the center of your own existence. This is where trust is. Every living creature trusts the center of their own existence. That's where they begin, that's where they end. Any practice that develops an inward gaze, follow the breath to the center of your heart, feel your heartbeat, live in the present moment, write journals, write down your own feelings, trust your own intuition, follow it. Don't be outwardly focused. Take the focus inward, which is very counterintuitive because the more scared people get, the more news they want to watch, the more social media they want to do. That just increases the fear level.
I'm going to interject a little bit of my own personal experience. I've been on this process for about 5 years now, of Kriya yoga and mindfulness practices and being the witness to my ego. And what that's done for me has allowed me to feel this trust, this really deep trust that it gives me the benefit of not having fear. Like AI, I have no fear over that. Trump, that doesn't scare me. Even the wars, and even if it came close to my own city, when I put myself in that, I don't feel fear. What is it that you would say that my experience in dealing with this, like what am I getting in touch with?
When I train my students, I awaken a life force within their bodies. In the Indian tradition, they call it Kundalini. Let's forget the name. You can call it Holy Spirit if you want. There's an invisible life force in your body, and that gets awakened through proper training through a spiritual master. Once you start to feel some sort of a spiritual energy moving your body, your identity shifts from Chris, the physical body, to somebody who also has moving life force energy within them. As your identity shifts towards moving, dynamic, spiritual energy within you, you start trusting more and more, because energy cannot be destroyed by the wrong president. Energy, the life force, cannot be destroyed by any number of things. Even if I physically die, there's still an energy within my being that is coming from nature. So I put my students in touch with a natural force, an invisible energy. Beyond your brain, there's this field of mindfulness and awareness that's constantly there. That's an indestructible energy field. Any creature has some sort of awareness, mindfulness. That is what the scriptures in India call God. It's your ability to be aware. So then why are people less and less scared when I put them in touch with this spiritual energy? Because the more you identify yourself as awareness, mindfulness, breath coming in, breath going out, my students start to feel vibrations, pulsations of energy within themselves. So then instead of feeling their ego, instead of feeling their unique personality, they're feeling like their energy fields. And even if they were to die, energy cannot be destroyed. So as a result, people just become more trusting that I have the one life force that's in the pine tree, that's in the sky, and I enjoy the same life force, and therefore I have nothing to fear.
You have a book for sale on Amazon called Writing the Ways of Life. What is in that book?
It's a handbook of life. It covers many, many practical aspects of life, intuition, proper breathing, proper nourishment. I actually accumulated this knowledge over 40 years of teaching in 12 countries. And I wanted to create a handbook of life so that you could pick it up, open any chapter, and receive guidance, practical guidance on important aspects of life. And it's got an equal bit of knowledge coming from psychology and spirituality, because it also deals with getting rid of baggage in your psyche. And yet again, it deals with how to awaken holy spiritual electricity and energy in your body. It describes your energy centers. It describes your moods, how to use breathing to focus your mind and to better your moods. It describes what kind of nourishment and food best fits your body type. So really, if you put that book next to your bedside, you could literally open up to any page and be able to read from there and pick up tips and techniques.
One of the things that I see out in the world in my personal life, friends, associates, gossip, is that it's harder and harder to find a mate. And that maybe it's because of the anxiety that we talked about before, or maybe people are outwardly focused, also like we talked about before. What advice do you have for somebody that's seeking a relationship with a partner, be it a wife, a husband, etc., in this day and age?
Right. Well, the most challenging recommendation I have is start with yourself, start with your belief system, and start to visualize and convince your own mind that you are deserving of the best love available in this world. In other words, your inner wiring, your subconscious mind, must accept the idea of deservedness, that you deserve love. Because that belief system, once it's set, that's going to regulate your frequency. It's going to regulate your energy field. So if you're walking on Newberry Street in Boston and your subconscious believes that you are ready for love and that you are deserving of love, you're already walking down Newberry Street, radiating a particular type of energy and aura that'll attract a person of the opposite sex or same sex that is looking for the same thing. This is called resonance. Once your mind accepts an idea, you're going to resonate with that idea. So my first recommendation, prepare your internal programming and wiring to expect love, to feel deserving of love, and set your intention for it. Next, I would say, don't hunt for love. In other words, develop deep self-love, develop contentment in your own life, find your hobby, become financially independent, tap into your own power source. You would not believe how sexy it is to be in touch with one's own core power. Once you are flowing, cruising, because you've tapped into your own source of self-love, your own power, then you're just beaming. You're just a star, and people will be attracted to you. It's the opposite of hunting for love.
It's those frequencies that we can't see with our eyes or even hear with our ears, but it's the frequencies that we give off that other people's intuitions and instincts pick up, and they're attracted to us. So we have to develop those frequencies inside of ourselves so that they emit
Right.
the signal to our
Right.
potential mate.
You know, one of the sexiest and greatest feelings is your ability to do well in life by just being yourself. I mean, imagine Elvis Presley starts to shake his body in a way that's him, and the world starts to reward him for that. Anybody who's making it in any good way by just being themselves must feel very attractive, because you're being rewarded for exactly who you are. That's the tangent. That's the angle. Most people are trying to become someone else.
You know, on a personal note, that's the journey I'm on. And part of what I'm doing here right now with you is related to that. I figured, I just want to be myself. I just want to go talk to people. I want to find out what are the secrets of life. What are the things that other people have learned, and And so it's kind of it's a challenge. It's like a riddle. It's can I do this? And I just want to be myself.
I would also tell you, in my 40 years of experience healing people, I find that the greatest fear that all human beings have is this fear of coming back home, shedding all superficial layers, coming back home, breathing easy under their own skin, and experimenting to see if they can survive and thrive by just being themselves. That's the greatest risk, greatest fear that most human beings have. And yet, the gold mine, the big diamond, lies right within yourself.
Are people just afraid to let go of the things that they've been conditioned? And let before you answer, I have a theory that when we get conditioned at a young age by our elders, and then as we grow up in society, cultural influences, news media, when we go to school, etc., we get all these norms. And if we imagine leaving those things behind, it's really scary. That's my theory about it. Why is it that people are afraid to find their way back home, their original self?
They're afraid because somewhere along the line they lost home. I mean, if you think of a baby being born into a home, that baby is home. And then they start to watch one or both parents, and then the school teachers, and then the gym teacher, and they start to absorb other people's truths. This is what we call socialization. As you absorb your uncle and your dad and your stepmom, you're stepping further and further away from your own instinct, from your own inner knowledge. So then by the time you're 9 years old, you've already lost the way back home. And then you start to believe this mind, this computer that's been programmed by the external society. And the more you believe that, the further away you get from your own heartbeat, the song of your own heart, your own instinct, your own intuition. So later when you want to come back home, the conditioned mind scares you into thinking that if you take inward steps to get closer to your own instinct and intuition, that something really bad is going to happen. Most people who follow social media like crazy are hoping to find the answer through another influencer. And that's awful, because the center of your power, your truth, is always going to be inside you. So what I would say is, don't believe your conditioned mind that's on autopilot. Make a conscious effort. Follow your breath. Sense your heartbeat. Do journaling. Do some art. Walk in nature. Do anything to sense your own inner self.
How do early messages about money affect our finances in our adult lives?
Well, first of all, a message you get from somebody else is somebody else's truth. For example, my mom was always well off. She was born in a well-off family. But her mom, being my grandmother, had deep fears about loss of money. So then my grandmother gave it to my mom, and as I was walking around my mom, I picked up some of her money worries. So what I'm saying is, money worries that I gained through a previous generation or other friends, that's somebody else's fear that I'm picking up. So what do? I need to find evidence to the contrary of money fears that other people have put into my head. So if I come from a family of farmers in Iowa and nobody's ever made $200,000, I need to see in my own life if I can find direct evidence of my ability to make more money than the previous generations in my family. Direct evidence. What I would say is, anything that you directly experience is going to have you understand something in your heart. If you feel you're unattractive and then you directly experience an attractive person wanting you, that's one direct experience. And that experience will sit in the middle of your heart. Once you feel something in your heart, you're never going to forget. So with money, I would say go out, experiment, have a direct experience of abundance. Once you have a direct experience of abundance, your heart will get it that you don't need to be as worried as your mom or your grandma.
Do you think there's a connection between self-worth and financial success?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you know the saying, self-worth equals net worth. What that means is if I trust myself, then I'll take bigger risks. Any business person will know that you can, gain bigger rewards by stepping outside your comfort zone, taking bigger risks. If you like yourself, if you trust your capabilities, you're going to take on larger challenges. When you take on larger challenges, the rewards are obviously going to be bigger, typically, And then you're also optimistic. If you like yourself, if you know you've got capabilities, you're going to be optimistic. A lot of people on the verge of a business partnership or starting a new venture, a lot of people see the chance of failure as being higher than the chance of success. I would say any healthy person should see at least a 50-50 chance of failure or success. But most people are more pessimistic than that. So the more you love yourself, the more deserving you feel, the more you trust yourself, the more you're going to trust your capabilities. The more you trust your capabilities, the higher risks you'll take and the greater rewards you'll be exposed to.
Over the years, I've seen lots of videos on YouTube. They talk about affirmations and manifestation and this kind of repetition of a positive attribute you might have or want, aspire to have. You do affirmations a little differently. Can you tell me, first of all, why affirmations are so important in reprogramming the subconscious? And then let me know what your technique is.
Okay, so I'll start my answer like this. This box represents your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind controls 80% of your entire life because this is the habit center. All your habits are lodged in the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind understands one thing in terms of changing its programming. It understands repetition, repetition, repetition. Any sports coach will tell you that through repetition, the athlete becomes better. So when we want to change negativity lodged in your habit mind, we need to repeat things that are the opposite of your negative notions. So if you have negative thoughts of I'm unattractive or I'm worthless, you must on a daily basis repeat positive sentences, positive visualizations that reinforce your great attributes, your qualities, you being a desirable person for another person. So repetition of the opposite of self-limiting ideas. Because this supercomputer, understands repetition more than anything else. It also understands visualizations and imagery. That's why repetitive visualization also helps.
The other folks who do affirmations talk about doing an affirmation in the present tense. The way that you do it is a little differently, tense-wise. What is your recommendation for affirmations? Do you say I am, or do you say I have been, or I will be? How does that work with you?
Well, sometimes I say the most powerful mantra in the whole world is I am, I have always been, and will always be worthwhile, for example, because that presents a whole eternity. I am and I have always been a child of the God force. It's a span of time. It didn't begin at the end of high school or something like that.
And then it also goes to, it helps reprogram the subconscious, because if we had been conditioned that we did not have self-worth, and we were not attractive at younger ages, this is counter programming that we would be engaging in if we said, I have always been.
Right. Also, I have always been also reinforces something else. Other than your bones and your kidneys and lungs, you have energy within your body, and energy is indestructible. So when you say a mantra like "I am and I have always been," there's something eternal about that. In other words, we reinforce the idea that there's also a life force running through you. There's an energy running through you. You have vibes. You have charisma. You have intuition. Those things are not like physical organs of your body. Charisma is not a physical organ. Sexual attraction towards somebody else, that goes beyond the physical body. It's an attraction. So when you say, I am and have always been, it brings in the notion that, I might have a spirit. I might also be an energy field. I might have a soul that's indestructible.
In a world of violence, scarcer resources, seemingly dwindling opportunities, AI, a lot of people's instinct is to react out of fear and maybe even greed. What advice do you have for the audience? What might be a more healthy way of approaching our current environment?
Yeah, my answer is an unusual one. I wouldn't say lie down and act dead when there's so many crises going on. My answer would be, if you're swimming in a rushing river, more and more tumultuous, more and more stormy, I would recommend that once in a while you step out of the river, sit on the river banks, and watch the river of life through mindfulness. In other words, instead of gathering all your willpower, becoming more aggressive, becoming more violent in order to get your piece of bread vis-a-vis other people, I would say no. Merge with natural forces, meaning once or twice a day, take some time out, breathe, watch your own mind as if you're watching a movie screen, watch the moment, go into quiet observation while you breathe. And as you do this, as you step out of the rushing river, a higher layer of your own mind called mindfulness kicks in. And in that state, you'll be at one and in harmony with the forces of nature. Nature is much more powerful than any president or any war. So by becoming mindful, by following your breath, by stepping out of the chaos, by observing the chaos, but not jumping into it, you're actually merging with an energy field called pure consciousness, which is the same thing as the force of Mother Nature. That is the surest way of survival in a world that's in havoc.
Kambiz, have any of your students taught you anything about your process, or spiritual things, or even taught you anything about yourself? Have any of your students during this time of transformation coaching and meditation workshops and retreats, and working with people from all over the world for 30 years, have any of your students taught you anything about yourself?
Mm-hmm. And about life? I would say less than a handful of students have brought me to tears in my own private space. Those people have been the ones who've been very, very thirsty for contentment, for peace of mind. And they were so thirsty that they tried their very, very best to step outside the comfort zone of old negative habits and beliefs. And they stepped into uncharted territory with unbelievable courage. And what they proved to me was that given enough unshakable faith, that humans can have unbelievable resilience and courage. These were thirsty people. They were suffering. They were really looking for some peace of mind. And because of the pain, they were willing to go through all lengths of practice. And so they were willing to try uncharted territory. And they built up their faith muscles. So if I asked them to do a mantra for an entire 5 days, they would do it, whereas nobody else had the stamina. Those people moved me because they proved that given enough desire, given enough faith, you can break all sorts of barriers. And those people are very moving. They're very inspiring. So they taught me about how resilient, how courageous human beings can be.
Earlier, we talked about addictions, and I've heard you say in previous talks that if you want to make real change, you don't change behavior, you change something else. What is that something else?
Beliefs. Your entire life is being run by your mind. And the part of the mind that runs 80% of your mind is this subconscious mind. It's invisible to you. Most of you don't see its contents. And all of your beliefs are lodged in your subconscious mind. You process anything that you're experiencing today through your beliefs. So if you believe that a branch is a snake, you might give yourself a panic attack. Anything you've experienced today has been filtered through your beliefs. When you change your beliefs, you change the way you look at life. When you change the way you look at life, then that influences your behavior and the results of your life. So when quitting an addiction, you need to figure out which beliefs are giving you so much pain so as to force you to use a mood-altering substance or activity in order to get away from your own self-created hell. In other words, if somebody asked me what is hell, I would say hellish beliefs create an internal hell. If I really dislike myself, that's an internal hell. To get away from that hell, I need a mood-altering activity or substance, which is an addiction. So how to get rid of the addiction? You change the negative self-limiting belief about yourself. And then there's no more need for a mood-altering substance or activity.
Kambiz, it has been said that it's not so important what we do, but why we do what we do. Why do you do what you do?
I do what I do because it's just me. I'm doing something that's aligned with my nature. Ever since I remember, I was a poet, philosopher, a communicator, and somebody who had some wisdom. So I took the wisdom, communication skills, my sense of poetry, philosophy, and that I had in childhood, and I just brought it to my career during adulthood. It's like saying a bird sings because it's a bird. I am a teacher, and I've always liked thinking about wisdom, philosophy of life, people's emotions. It's just who I am and what I do. So I'm just a singer who sings.
But the notes in your song are a little bit different than physical music. They are, what would you call the vehicle of your song? I mean, is it spirituality? Is it meditation?
Yeah, I would say the art of life. I would say wisdom. Wisdom is a stream running through all of the teachings. And I'm not going to say I'm the wisest person in the universe, but that's a gift I had since childhood. I would ponder deeper layers of life and look for solutions. I've done a lot of looking to see what makes most sense. I'm also a teacher by instinct. So, I look for truth. I look for what works in life. And I am a teacher, so I look for what works in life. I find some of the things that really work well in life, and then I teach it. That's who I am.
I can imagine you get big satisfaction out of watching people transform.
Yes, yes.
That's got to be a cool,
Yeah.
kind of feedback.
For a teacher, the greatest gift, especially at my age, is to see students of yours who've already transformed. So many of them are now blooming and successful. When I say success, I talk about somebody who has a little bit of everything. A beauty queen only has beauty. A billionaire only has dollars. I have students who now have contentment, some peace of mind. They have love in their lives. They have a connection with the creative force. Those are the billionaires.